Welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast. I'm Pidge.
And I'm Mowen.
We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them. Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time.
Hi, ladies.
Hi! Happy New Year!
Brilliant. I'm so happy that I'm doing this podcast with you in
Yay!
2025.
Oh, happy fucking New Year, everyone!
What's your New Year's resolution?
To get pregnant.
Okay. Mine's to spite my enemies. Continue.
That sounds appropriate. Yes. Look, they're basically the same as last year. Not gonna lie.
It's a continuing theme for
What
me.
is everyone else's New Year's resolutions? Do you partake in such bullshit? Do you just simply roll on with life the way it was yesterday? Tell us what's happening.
I always like the people that say, to go to the gym,
Oh, fuck off.
And I'm like, you're just wasting your money.
Look,
you're just wasting your money.
It's not a waste of money, but it is one of those token things that, like, anyone who ever makes a New Year's resolution to get fitter or lose weight or something inevitably doesn't need to wait till the 1st of January to do that. Like, if you have been eating your way through December only to then starve yourself in January, whatever. It's not for me. It's not for me. You do you, but I would love to see how you're holding up in February and March, okay?
Yeah. Come back to us.
Yeah, let us know.
So this is episode 50.
Can you fucking believe it?
Double the year.
Yes.
2025.
Double the year and also 2 weeks until our 1 year anniversary.
I know.
Can you believe it?
I'm very excited.
This time last year, we didn't even have a microphone.
No, we didn't. I feel like we had a few meetings in the lounge room and I had a very wee baby.
You did.
And we just made it work, didn't we?
Yeah.
We're still making it work.
We are. You were on mat leave. You had a hashtag all the time in the world at home, despite being attached to a young, small thing. And Rosal was here.
Yes, of course.
And she's still,
she's still
a
with
part
us.
of our life.
She's not dead.
She's still
we see
not
her
dead.
all the time.
We do. We see her all the time at work, and she launched this podcast with us and is off doing other adventures, and we remain.
We do. We linger.
We linger.
The essence remains.
The essence remains. And I hope that you're bloody enjoying it, because we are, honestly, could have no listens and be happy.
Yes.
Because it brings me joy.
Look, honestly, I'm not feeling super joyful today.
Oh.
Unfortunately, the anniversary of the year also coincided with the saddest day.
Yes.
And that is that one of my favourite authors, as you will all know, Sin Lin Yu, who wrote the fan fiction Manacled. She's being traditionally published this year, which is, clicks for Sin Lin Yu.
Oh,
Clicks for Sin Lin Yu.
absolutely. She's a legend.
But also I hate her because she has had to remove Manacled from AO3.
Yeah, it's really sad. But rest assured, Pidge has saved every which copy that was ever put anywhere.
Yes.
And I also do have mine safely on my Kindle. What happens when I get a new Kindle?
Nothing, because everything moves across. You're fine, babes, don't worry.
Fuck.
So the removal of Manacled is something that I was not emotionally prepared for. I'm absolutely devastated. And the story lives on.
It
the
does.
essence remains.
The essence remains.
Yet again.
I think we just need that as a tattoo.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But something positive did happen for the podcast.
Yes. Hello, sign.
Is it giving?
Props to Husbo for Christmas Santa for Christmas gift.
Yeah. Clicks for Santa / Barry.
Yep. Isn't it beautiful?
Yes.
I hope you guys enjoy it if you're watching.
Yeah. I'm not going to do it now because if you're not watching on YouTube, you won't get it.
Yeah.
But it does come with a remote. It's connected to the Wi-Fi and it does all sorts of really cool things where it can change colours to music and voices and all of the above. Essentially it does anything you could ever want a fluorescent sign to be.
I get to enjoy it.
Yeah, you do.
Because it is smack bang behind your head in front of me.
And I was just asking before, is it
Oh, it's stunning.
beeth good?
Do it be good? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
Is the light be good?
I asked if the light was okay behind me because it's quite bright.
Is it bright? Do you feel it's bright behind you?
Well, look, I actually, when I was showing it to you, I was turning it down.
Oh.
So I'm not sure what it is now.
Look, I appreciate
I don't know.
whatever
Anyway,
it is.
It is what it is. If you can't see my face, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because of the ethereal light behind me.
Yeah. You will have to excuse my basic bitch wall.
That's the other side of the pain cave.
Yes. We are directly opposite one another. I get to enjoy said light, as do you, and Pidge gets to be lit from within.
There's a lot of light happening
Yeah.
in this room.
Yes.
Right, let's get into Silver Flame.
Did we actually say that this episode is dedicated to Senlin Yu?
We did not because
we're on one.
I love you and I hate you, Sinlin Yu, but all the best for 2025. If you could continue writing Dramini, I would be thrilled about that, along with Alchemized.
Yeah.
And I will be the first to purchase and the first to read it and the first to have multiple copies.
I have no doubt of that. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to talk to Pidge when Alchemized is purchased.
I do not exist. When Alchemized is released, I do not exist.
Fair.
Right, now we're talking chapters 11 to 15 of Silver Flames, and the house is not having a good 2025 either. It's very bitter at Nesta for the fact that she didn't eat the lunch that it made for her and relate.
Yeah.
Relatable.
Well, the children are always refusing, aren't they? Yes.
Right.
And Nesta is one of the children.
She just wants a hot meal and a good book, but the house is not allowing her access to the library to do such a thing. And essentially it's pushing her in the direction of the dining room.
Yes. It's dictating where she's going to be eating her din-dins.
Correct.
Which is how I feel a lot of the time.
Yep.
Not in front of the television.
No.
Nesta and the house continue to talk a lot to one another. She doesn't always do what the house wants her to do, and sometimes they even actually have arguments, which I think is much like the inside of my head.
I feel like it's like, you know, when you're already mad and then like your sleeve gets caught on the door handle.
Oh, raging.
Yeah.
Raging.
Yeah.
That happens quite a bit to me at home.
Yeah. Only when you're already mad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nesta thinks about her father and Vasa, and she feels angry that he was willing to do so much to fight to save a stranger. And I can really relate to this when like someone that you love does more for the people that don't matter so much. And this is kind of, I think there's obviously more to the story about like the relationship that Vasa had with Papa Archeron and the things that they bargained with one another.
Which we don't know what that is.
We have no idea about that backstory. And she just feels simply that he wasn't willing to do the same for her. But I fail to understand how the grand gesture of the ship doesn't come up.
I can't quite relate to how Nesta has essentially ignored her father for many, many years. And then all of a sudden he shows up and dies and she cares now. Right. So they're having dinner now, and Azriel finally asks the question to Nesta that Cassian should have asked her chapters ago.
Quite a while.
He says, "Why aren't you training Nesta?" And she tells him that she isn't training in that miserable village.
In the miserable village.
Yes, making note of that. They have a very bitter argument back and forth, and it ends up with Cassian telling her that he is done, and he gets up and walks out. Nesta also gets up and leaves the table, and she goes to the library and works in silence.
For quite a while, like long into the night.
Yes. Meanwhile, Cassian sits on the top of the House of Wind looking down at the open-aired training ring, and poof, Feyre appears next to him.
Yeah. I quite love this interaction.
Yeah.
It's like bro and sis vibes.
Yes. So she winnows in.
Yeah.
Didn't fly. He didn't hear her approach, which is interesting because Cassian's you would think he would hear her, right?
Exactly.
She's not exactly elegant in her flying or winnowing.
Very protected.
She is very shielded.
Shielded.
The
till within an
shield
inch of her life.
remains. And she says that Reese said you were thinking loudly and I figured I'd see what was happening.
I love this. Thinking loudly. Does Cassian push the messages to Reese willy-nilly, or does he simply just, like, there's something...
I have a theory.
Okay. Oh, fucking brilliant.
It's not complicated.
No.
And probably here is not an appropriate time to talk about it. We'll talk about it a little bit later, maybe next episode or the one after.
Pause the theory. Pause.
But they are linked together and it's just not in the way that you think it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Cassian asks why her and Nesta don't get along. And she says it's always been that way. Their mother only cared for Nesta. So there was always that divide between the two of them. And Cassian seems to have an epiphany of how he can help Nesta.
Yes.
Because he's talking it through. And I think that Feyre knew that he just needed to talk it through in order to have the realization of the fact that Nesta didn't want to train in that miserable village.
I think that an epiphany is a really easy way for an author to get out of having to do a lot of extra legwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, da-da-da, and you can see the light bulb.
Yes, that's right. So
good one, Sarah.
Good. She was tired for this chapter. Thanks for Sarah. So now it's a new day, and after breakfast, he takes Nesta to the training ring that's on the top of the House of Wind instead of Windhaven, and he tells her that they're going to be training there today. He beckons her into the ring, and before she can argue about it, he offers her a bargain. And he says that if she does 1 hour of training, that he will owe her one favour, which is such a risky thing, right? Because she's still so precarious. She could say, I want you to fly me down to the taverns
and watch me fuck someone.
Yeah. Literally. Get drunk.
Stand there while I...
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite risky on his behalf, but it does pay off.
It does.
She does make the bargain with him for a favour of whatever size she wishes.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous. They both feel the magic awash over them, and Cassian starts looking at himself to find the tattoo. So he's like looking at his hands, looking at his forearms, and he's like, oh, what's going on? So he just like whips off his shirt, checks out his abs, because that's the next logical place that a tattoo would appear.
Yeah.
It's not there either though. And there just coincidentally happens to be a freestanding mirror in the training
The mirror,
ring.
Vera said.
Yes.
In the room of requirement.
He turns around and down his spine is the tattoo.
Love.
Yeah. So it's described as an 8-pointed star whose compass points radiated into sharp lines across and up the groove of his back, twining with his existing Illyrian tattoo, and the eastern and western points of the star shot right onto his wings, black blending into black. And a matching one would be on Nesta's spine.
I love it.
Yeah. It's a big tattoo.
It's a huge tattoo. When you think about an 8-pointed star on someone's spine, you're like, okay. And then they get to explaining how the points meet the wings, and then you realise how big it is. I want to see some fan art about this. So if you've got some, tag us. The next bit is interesting.
He turns around to Nesta and her attention is literally on his crotch.
Legitimately, the V's of deliciousness point down to
the ones that flowed into his pants like a golden arrow pointing to exactly what she wanted. Okay, Nesta is randy too. The fact that you would see an arrow in that.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah has drawn the arrow.
But we've talked in the last 2 episodes about how randy Cassian is, right?
Yeah.
He's had these like random crop up memories of him and Reese in the same room, and so Nesta is now too. It's like it's contagious.
Yeah, well, there's
It's
a
like
lot
scurvy going around the inner circle.
There's a lot going on between the two of them on a chemical level at the moment, right? Because we know what they are.
Well, scurvy is a rash,
but without the scurvy, there's a lot. The sense that would be flowing on. Az knows what's going on. Like Az is like, oh, for fuck's sake. Chaperone McGee.
He's not a good chaperone.
He's not a good chaperone. He comes to interrupt soon, but he's not doing a very good job of it.
Before we talk about that, can we please talk about that when he turns around and Nesta's literally like staring without blinking, like the whites of her eyes at his crutch. He flexes.
Of course he does. He's an Illyrian baby.
What is wrong with you?
I feel like Cassian's the sort of bloke that has like ridiculous muscle definition without the need to flex, but the fact that he still flexes hilarious.
So she also says that he has more muscles than she can count. And I'm either concerned for her math skills or it reminds me of, is it Michelin Man?
Yes.
Yes, just that man that was just like couldn't even move because he was so muscly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit creepy, but
It's
Sarah's not drawn that good for me. Anyway. They do an hour of training and then they do another hour of training where they work on her feet and breathing.
boring. But at the end of the second hour, he's like, oh, well, what do I owe you for such an hour? And she's like, oh, that was
On the house.
that was on the house. Okay. That's not what women do. Right.
No.
This is so unrelatable because I'd be like, well, actually, I'd very much like a foot rub or a cup of tea.
Yes.
Something. It doesn't have to be like
Especially on your first hour. And as someone who has vomited off the side of the treadmill only yesterday, I can tell you.
Did you actually?
Yes, but it happens often to me, unfortunately.
Good. I love that. Maybe we do need a recording studio.
That's another topic. So, does it smell like beer in here to you, by the way?
I should say yes just to annoy you, but no.
Okay, never mind.
Did you have a beer?
No. It's another. The vomit and the beer is another story.
Okay.
Right. Relatable.
Yes.
The first hour of training is always the worst. It's so bad that there's no way you do a second hour in the first time. Like she's doing that for a reason.
Yeah. He helps her with her breathing and her cool down at the end of the second hour. This is the first time we really see like an ease in her. And I think that it's trying to draw the fact that she's finding peace with the work that she's doing, which was the whole point, right?
Yes. Well, we all know that that's what exercise does to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We all should do it.
Yes. But we don't. Health advice from the Night Shift Corn podcast for your 2025. You should exercise, but we don't.
Cheers from me and my wagon wheel. They have a chat after the cool down and Nesta asks him about Emery and about her wings specifically, that she had noted her wings had been clipped and they'd had that conversation. He explains it's a way for Illyrian men to control Illyrian women. And it's actually technically illegal, and that Reese and Cassian have been their bonnet about trying to make it completely outlawed.
The progress is slow amongst the Illyrians.
Very slow. And then they obviously have the conversation about Cassian tells her that he didn't mean to say that
no one liked her.
That everyone hated her. It was the scathing comment. And I think that probably Nesta would have reacted differently to how it's written. I think that there would have been a lot more animosity and cold shoulder if it wasn't written this way.
I think she hates herself too.
Yeah.
So she's a little bit muted by that comment.
Numb. Yeah. So he says to her, I don't hate you. And she says, and I never hated you, Cassian. And he dies basically at the thought and the hearing of his name on her lips. And I was like, oh, mate, like that's a bit icky.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's the randiness.
The pussy.
The scurvy.
The fluffy cat in the bed.
Yeah. The fluffy cat in the bed is what he's all on about.
Yeah.
Now, that afternoon, Nesta is starving while she's working in the library.
Relatable.
Yeah, she's been very busy exercising. You got to get the calories back in.
You got to put the protein in,
That's right. She's busy shelving some particularly heavy books, which is unfortunate considering she's already worked out today. And Gwen finds her and dumps her with more books to shelve.
Yeah.
Gwen asks Nesta if she's seen a particular book called Lavinia's The Great War.
Yes, volume 7 specifically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, Lavinia, let's have a talk about her.
Oh, you've done some digging.
I have.
Okay.
Again, it's Greek. It's always Greek.
Isn't it just?
And that makes my research that much easier because I know what I'm looking for,
Yes,
right?
and,
Greek mythology.
And you are Greek.
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah. Kalimera.
In essence. So Lavinia was the lover of Hercules.
Oh.
Yeah. And we all know Hercules is considered the greatest war god.
Yes.
So it makes sense that his lover has written a book on war.
The
right?
Great War, yeah.
Yeah, which is the Valkyries. Yeah. Anyway, so that's all. Nothing interesting, but good to know.
So Gwen works for someone called Meryl in the library, and she basically explains that Meryl's super demanding of her, and she's actually accidentally put volume 8 in her office, and she wants to try and find the right one and replace it before Meryl notices. So Gwen reveals she hasn't left the library or her dorm since she got there, which is a long time.
Yeah.
She says she'll stay until she's ready to leave, if she ever is. So we don't learn a lot about Gwen in the first instance, but we come to know more about her and the circumstances of her being in the library and
Yeah.
and
Well, I
those
think
sorts
they
of things.
all have that esque about them. All
Exactly.
of the priestesses that are there.
We know why in basic form. So Gwen leaves and Nesta asks the house to find the book for her. And it does. Helpful as the house may be.
Yeah.
She locates Meryl's office and finds Meryl in there, and she tries to distract her basically. She's
Yes.
doing the
The
old
old
switcheroo.
Yes. That is literally what I wrote down.
The old
Nesta does
switcheroo.
the old switcheroo. Volume 7 and 8.
Yeah, I love it. So she manages to do it successfully after a tense moment between Nesta and Meryl.
Yes.
Meryl. They're having a weird exchange, but
Yes.
she does. She succeeds with the switcheroo. Nesta finds Gwyn singing, and she notes that her hair seems to be glowing brighter when she sings, and her skin is radiating.
Yeah. Drawing any listener in.
Yeah, it's
Have
seriously.
you seen the theories on this?
I'm afraid to look.
Okay.
To be honest.
Do you want me to tell you
Go
about
on.
it? So
I don't know if I want to.
there's two. One is that Gwen is a siren, right?
Sure.
So traditionally sirens are women of the water.
Greek mythology again.
Yep. And their hair glows, their skin glows,
Yes.
and they sing and it draws
They're
in
alluring.
sailors,
Yeah.
right, to the depths, and then they drown them.
Yes.
Brill.
Yes.
So one is that. And the second is that she is, and this is based off, it's probably, again, not super appropriate for this episode, but there has been lots of theories out there about Gwen and Asriel
Yes.
for the next book. And there is a theory that she is what's called a light bringer. A light singer instead of a shadow singer.
Oh.
So it's essentially the opposite of what
Asriel.
he is, yeah. And remembering we know very, very little about shadow singers and in this case very, very little about light singers.
Yeah.
So that was the other theory, that because there's a few references as we go on about her singing. She does
Yes.
quite a lot of singing, and she mentions that was one of the things that she loved back at her temple.
Yeah.
And yeah, the glowing hair is another reference. It's very tangled.
Very tangled.
Flower, gleam and glow.
Let your spirit shine or something.
When the clock something reverse, bring back what once was mine.
What once was mine.
You get it.
Yeah.
You get it.
Good. So, yes, I have written, it's a hint at her powers, but I haven't delved into theory, so thank you for filling in blanks.
You're welcome.
She asks Gwen what Meryl is researching. She says lots of stuff.
Meryl's brilliant, apparently.
Yes, but she sounds like a douche.
Yeah. I mean, she's a bitch,
Yeah.
but she's smart.
Most ambitious people are bitchy.
Yes.
Anyway, Meryl is obsessed with theories about different realms and worlds. Interesting.
Yeah.
I like this. She says some believe that there are 26 realms or worlds, with the last one being time itself. This is important later in reference to one of the Dread Trove articles.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. She says that Meryl is writing a comprehensive history of the Valkyries. The war 500 years ago wiped out most of them, and the rest got out and allowed themselves to die out of shame. They were a clan of female warriors, not a race of fighters like the Illyrians, but Valkyries was just the name they gave themselves, which I fucking love. I should have worn my Valkyrie top today.
Yes. You could almost wear it for every episode.
I could, because I feel like you and I are Valkyries.
Yeah.
We have formed a bond. We've called ourselves something that means something powerful, and we are fucking doing the things.
Yeah. What have we called ourselves?
The Night Shift
Oh,
Corps.
of course. I was like, what?
Okay, good that you don't return the sentiment. Thank you. Good.
So after this conversation with Meryl, Nesta goes back and eats her meal in her room. On her desk, has a hot bath, goes to sleep naked, which she wouldn't normally do.
No, is she inviting somebody?
But she hears the door open and a familiar scent wash over her. And we all know who that is. Cassian's just dropped in and been like, never mind.
Whoops.
Yeah. You know when you find someone naked and you're like, what?
Well, I don't find people naked except my husband.
You've never found someone else naked? Like a random?
I've walked into houses when patients have been naked.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But they've said, I'm sorry, I don't have clothes. Like if they've been fallen over in the bathroom or whatever.
Of course, yes, yes.
But no, I don't think I've ever come across anyone naked.
Oh, okay. So story time.
I'm glad to hear it.
I was once having a conversation with a group of girlfriends around the most appropriate way to do a bush wee, right?
Oh.
Have I told you about this before?
No.
Okay. So everyone knows how the traditional squat for a bush wee, right?
Yes.
It's not very good.
It's quite painful.
Like I cannot hold a squat for very long. So the bush wee.
Yes.
It's not a very good way to do a wee, is it? Because it's quite messy. The feet are in proximity. Where are the pants? You know, are they in range?
Get splooshed.
Yeah. So we were talking about some other ways, and a friend was sharing that she had once come across a lady, and this is how she learnt to do this particular style, was pants off completely, right? Like just if you're wearing like tight pants, just leaving them on one leg. And like a crab crawl, like hands back, legs apart on your hands and your feet.
Yes. Okay. So she came across somebody like
Someone
that.
doing
you
that.
Did.
No, she did.
Okay.
And she was shocked because she was like, "Ooh, I'm so sorry."
Yeah, but it's
like,
not tits out too.
what are you what are you doing?
Yes.
And they had a conversation afterwards.
That's what
funniest thing ever.
I would have just turned around and walked away and pretended like nothing happened.
This person is also a paramedic, so I feel like it's, there's nothing off limits.
I totally know
about,
who
right?
would have told you this story, by the way.
Okay, I'm sure you would have.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that is how she came across a naked person, not while at work, doing this particular move for a bush wee, and now she religiously does that.
Yeah.
She said it's great. And
do you reckon it was false and that old mate?
Oh, you think that she did the move and someone found her, but she changed the story around.
The tree,
Chapter 14. So the next morning, Cassian waits in the training ring for Nesta. She didn't come to dinner and she didn't come to breakfast either. He did indeed go to her room last night to check on her, and the house showed him her empty plates as evidence that she'd eaten.
Love that.
I feel like it's a bit of a matchmaker, the house.
It's a dobber.
Yeah. Then he hears like swearing and scraping of feet and like muttering, and then Nesta appears in the doorway. She's obviously very in the hurt locker after yesterday.
Yep.
And they start their routine with no complaints this morning. It only took her 2 hours of training to figure out that she liked training, and now here she is. 2 hours again now.
Love it.
She's covered in sweat and they're done. They need to now stretch, and so they do. And he offers to stretch her leg for her, you know, the laying down and the one leg that goes back.
Yeah. It's a very sexual position with clothes on. Yeah.
It is. It's the classic yoga position in which your instructor helps you.
You can stretch yourself, doll. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not making porn.
And well, we are.
We are.
And he says, I feel dirty saying this. Breathe into it when I push your leg forward.
Doll, it's about to get a whole lot worse, just so you know. Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, he does say that.
Yeah, he does. And do you know what? I kind of like it.
I don't know. I will share my thoughts on dirty talk a little bit later.
Oh, I already know.
Sure, you already know. Everyone else needs to know as well.
You'll be informed. In a little bit.
They move on to her other leg and they start to speak about how nimble she is. And she explains that before they were poor, she learned how to dance. Apparently dance lessons make you incredibly flexible.
Look, I can attest to this. I used to be a dancer and my flexibility's still quite good. No matter I don't stretch.
Like, how long ago were you a dancer?
Like when I was a kid, or actually not even into my adult.
So 15 years ago.
No, fuck you. Into my adult years, I did. I still danced.
What did you dance?
Hip hop and like contemporary. No, you absolutely won't be saying it.
I need to say it.
No.
Hip hop.
Yeah.
Hip hop.
Yeah.
Were you good? Did you get
fine.
crunk?
I had. I got crunk. Oh, yeah. Let me see you 1 2 step. Yeah. I was great. No, I had rhythm. I did it. I did it for exercise.
I had rhythm.
Fuck you. Did you ever dance?
Yes.
Okay, so fuck you. Nesta danced as a child.
And so did Mowen.
Her sisters were described by Nesta as her father's princesses, but she was her mother's creature. She tells him that her mother was a worse version of her.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Just put yourself in Nesta's position for a second, right? If you describe your mother as a worse version of you, you feel pretty poorly about yourself.
Yes, agree.
So it's a big statement. Anyway, we'll forget about mum for now because I've banged on about Mama Archer on enough and I will die on that hill.
Yes.
If she turns out to be dead, like they say, I will fucking eat my hat.
Yes. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So she asks him what happened to the priestesses at Sangravar where Gwyn was, and he tells her that Highburn was looking for the cauldron and one of the pieces was hidden in a temple there. So there was a unit sent there of their cruelest warriors who killed most of the priestesses for sport and then raped the rest.
Yeah, that happened in Mist and Fury.
Grim, right? He tells her Azrael was the one who made it out there and slaughtered the warriors, and Moore was the one who brought Gwyn to the library.
Yep.
So now we skip to Le Spring Court of doom and gloom.
Yes.
Ridiculousness. I'm going to fall asleep while you talk about it.
No, unfortunately, our dear Cassian has come down with requiring an ambulance. He's got hay fever.
He does. Look, relatable.
Yeah.
This is how I would not be able to be a Spring Court girly.
Yes.
Because the rose, hate the scent of rose, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
Putrid.
Yeah.
But hay fever, no, thank you.
Yeah. He says, I'd peel off my skin right now if it would stop the itching. Yeah.
That is so
and it's
relatable.
You with
Shingles.
shingles. Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yes. They arrive at a large tree and Eris appears and Cassian describes him as, amid the pink and white blossoms, the cold-faced autumn court air looked truly fairy, as if he'd stepped out of the tree and his one and only master was the earth itself. I love Eris.
I know you do. I like that they've chosen neutral ground to meet.
Yes, well, Tamlin no longer patrols the land.
No, he gives not a fuck about it.
It's a bit of a dead man's land.
Yeah.
Anyway, Eris suggests that they're wasting time gathering information, that they should just kill the queens. He seems very intent on just removing this as an issue while they can. And Rhys figures out that Eris wants the queens dead because his father wants them alive. And if his father wants them alive, that means he's going to use them. And essentially Beron wants to start another war. He explains that Beron doesn't want land on the continent, but he wants the Spring Court lands instead because they're ripe for the picking, right?
Oh, they're luxurious lands. Like they're the southernmost lands. They're connected to the wall or the non-existent wall.
Yeah.
The human lands.
Opportunity for expansion.
Absolutely. And Beron cares not about the lives of anybody pretty much other than himself.
Yes, correct. So he tells Rhys and Cassian that he wants to be High Lord of Autumn for the same reason that he left Morrigan untouched at the border all those years ago. And Cassian's like, well, no, you left her there to suffer and die. And he says, did I? Perhaps you should ask Morrigan whether that is true. I think she finally knows the answer.
Yes, and I love this because we know that Eris isn't a baddie.
Yeah.
Right? We've already drawn that conclusion as a reader. And now it's like teaching the characters that Eris isn't a baddie.
Yeah.
And Moore needs to grow up and just fucking do the things.
Yeah. I think that there's two things here. So firstly, has Moore and Eris had a offline conversation that we as the reader aren't aware of? And that's why she finally knows the answer.
Yeah.
Or is it because of what he did? So do you remember he blocked her dad, Keir, from coming to Valaris? He inevitably delayed his visits to Valaris and he must have given him something for that, and we still don't know what that is. So I'm wondering, was it that move that Eris performed this extra step to protect Moore from having her father come to Valaris? Is that what he's talking about when he's saying that, you know, she may finally know the answer?
Yeah. I think it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Rhys actually seems distracted during this interaction. And
I wonder why.
And Cassian asks him if he's okay, but he basically says nothing before he just winnows them back to the Night Court.
His mind is elsewhere.
Yeah.
Despite Feyre being covered from head to toe in shields that are impenetrable to every which one, Cassian can't even give her a peck on the cheek.
Yeah.
Anyway. So we're back with the library. So Nesta's on the 7th level of the library. I love this part of the book.
Yeah.
She feels like the darkness is watching her and calling her name.
I thought Bryaxis was gone.
Bryaxis is not there. Gwen finds her there and says some of the other priestesses have felt like the dark follows and watches them, that it has trailed them to their doors. Gwen tells her they should move up higher to her cart on the 4th floor. She's holding a glowing stone and she tells...
Her forehead rock.
Her forehead rock.
Yeah.
And she tells Nesta it's an invoking stone similar to the siphons that Illyrians wear, except the power of the mother flows through it and they can only use it for healing and protection, and it can shield them. This exchange between the two of them now... Gwen is reassuring and urging Nesta not to look behind her and to just get up the stairs, right? Gwen knows who Nesta is, that she's Feyre's sister and that she killed the King of Highburn, which I don't understand why they pitch Nesta being the king slayer, so to speak, because fucking Elaine did it.
I feel like it's deliberately built this way so that when Elaine has her outing... she will have some sort of cool title like Feyre Cursebreaker.
Yes, surely. So she tells Gwen her and her sister Elaine were both forced into the cauldron and made Fey, right? Nesta asks why Gwen doesn't wear her invoking stone on her head like all of the other priestesses. And Gwen says she doesn't deserve to, which I find interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just a consequence of not being able to protect the other priestesses.
Yeah.
You know, when the attack happened, like maybe she's harbouring guilt around that sort of thing.
There's an undertone there. So anyway, albeit that they Nesta feels watched the entire time, they make it to the cart and all is well. Nothing happens, so to speak.
God, I just want to go down there.
Don't you just? Yeah. You would live down there.
I
You
would.
are the thing down there.
I would be like, when I was reading this chapter, it sort of described that she was like in a trance when she was looking down into the darkness, and it was like sucking her in so much so that Gwen was calling her name and she didn't hear her for the first few times. And I'm just like, just go with it. Just go.
It's the same feeling I get with Moore in when Moore was horse riding and there was that like portal situation thing.
Yeah.
Anyway. Training. Back to training.
Yeah. They're doing curtsy squats. She's like, oh God, is this all we're going to do? And he says, yes, as long as you have shit balance, yes.
Get better.
Good. Now, Cassian actually tells Nesta of how he was born, which is really sad because I feel like we've known a lot of this, but it's never been explained in a chapter, if that makes sense. So he was born to an unwed female in a settlement that makes Windhaven look like a tolerant, welcoming paradise. And she was shunned for bearing a child out of wedlock and forced to give birth alone in a tent in the dead of winter. Awful.
Yes.
He explains that he's motivated because he wanted to prove that his mother had brought some good into the world because he was also labelled as a bastard.
Yeah.
Now they suddenly realise that they're having a D&M. And they're both like, oh, never
it's
mind.
a bit orkies, but they go with it.
Yeah. He says that through all of the hard times, his training remained consistent. And essentially that's what he's hoping for with Nesta, is that training will help to ground her. That night she goes back and on her nightstand the house winnows in two more, each more filthy than the last, books for her. And she goes for dinner and Cassian asks her how the library was. And she says, nothing tried to eat me today, so it was fine. And Cassian's very alarmed by this because he didn't know about the situation in the library.
Yeah.
And he asks her to explain. And they talk about Bryaxis, and Cassian says that he is my worst nightmares. And I'm not talking about petty phobias. I mean my deepest, most primal fears. We have never really had a description of what Bryaxis looks like. It's more what he feels like.
Yeah. And we obviously liken it to certain creatures and or we've seen fan art that kind of depicts what Bryaxis looks like. But we don't.
It's the Balrog. Right?
It is the Balrog. Like I cannot picture anything other than the Balrog. Okay. So it is what it is, Sarah. Like, you know, when the live action comes out, see what the Balrog's up to.
Yeah.
Just you shall not pass, okay?
Yeah, reach out.
Keep reaching out your hand.
To the Balrog.
To the Balrog. Yeah, so Cassian goes on to explain how he's put a lot of monsters in the prison. There were ancient beings from before the High Fae split into the courts. He says that everyone's referring to them as the first gods, and most were hunted down and driven into hiding or imprisonment. Obviously a lot by Cassian, and he goes on to say about a few of them. Cassian says when he was 300, which I love.
Yeah.
When I was 300.
Yeah.
One of the first gods appeared crawling out of the roots of a mountain, and his name was Lanthus. And he could turn into wind and rip the air from your lungs, or turn into rain and drown you on dry land. He fathered a race of fairies that are still around today. The Bog. The annoying thing is, I would just say this before we move on. In the first audiobook, we refer to it as the bog because that's what they said in the audiobook. In this audiobook, they call it the bogey.
Yeah, we had that discussion as to
Didn't
whether
we?
it's called bogey or bog.
What the fuck ever. Call it what you like. It doesn't matter. I like the bog because it makes me happy to say it.
I don't.
Oh, you like the bogey?
Yeah.
You have called it the bogey. That's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever you like.
Yeah.
So he had to trick him to catch him. He managed to trick him into trapping him into a mirror he made of ashwood and then put the mirror in the prison. Now, just a moment. This is clever. This is sophisticated. This doesn't scream Cassian. He's the general. He's a brute.
Yes.
He's an elite. I don't strike him as having this level. This is a Reese plan, if ever I've heard one, right?
Yes.
Did he consult Reese about this mirror made of ashwood?
Yeah.
Anywho, it worked.
It did, yes.
And Lanthus got out of the mirror, but he was in the prison already and he was still obviously imprisoned in there. And there was a few, he mentioned a few other creatures. I don't know if you want to talk about any of those.
Well, there's the 7-headed lubia.
Not labia.
Lubia. Not labia. Who made...
Is Sarah taking the piss?
I think she is.
And the blue anus. Not anus. She's taking the piss.
She is taking the piss.
Sarah, I'm onto you, you dirty minx.
Do you know what I think it is? It's the scabies. It's gone to Sarah and she's randy AF.
Yeah.
And she's like, here is the labia and here is the anus. Let's talk about the labia for a minute. She's 7-headed. And she made the mistake of surfacing from the deep caves of the blue ocean to prey on girls along the western coast.
Oh, no.
And the blue anus was a terror to behold.
Yeah.
Cobalt skin and iron claws, like Lubia, a taste for human flesh.
They will henceforth be known as the 7-headed labia and the blue anus. Copyright.
So good. Thank you, Sarah.
Good.
I really appreciated the references.
Yeah.
We see you. We
are you.
So Nesta's like, that's enough. And I'm like, no, more.
I would like more information, please.
She says she'll never sleep tonight and she doesn't know how he can, having faced all of that. And he's like, well, you learn to live with it, how to block the horrors of your present thoughts. And I'm like, that was not very subtle. That was not mirror material.
No.
At getting Nesta to realise she can get over her issues. But thank you.
Meanwhile, you're making your way to the prison to see the blue anus.
I am releasing
Lanthus.
I'm releasing Lanthus.
Yeah, you're in there.
Could you imagine? Hello.
Welcoming them.
He'd be like, who the fuck are you?
Yes, here you are. Here's the door.
Yeah. She says to him she doesn't have any powers. And he's like, well, then who left the handprint on the stairs?
Yeah.
And she tries to pass it off as Lucy. Cassian's like,
Yeah, no,
no.
absolutely fucking neg.
No. She starts to get defensive because he keeps pushing her with more and more and more questions. And she stands from the table and walks away, but he follows her and he gets in her face and he says, it never mattered to me whether you took half the cauldron's power or a drop. It still doesn't matter. She asks him why he even bothers and he counters with, well, why did you stay at my side when we went up against the King of Highburn in the last battle? And she doesn't give a truthful answer and just like shoves past him. And he keeps at her. She gets really mad and her eyes start to glow. He says, do you know how your eyes glow when your power rises to the surface? Like molten steel, like silver fire. And she slowly steps towards him like the predator that she is. And before she can touch him, he says, beautiful. She puts her hand on his chest and he walks him backwards until his wings are pinched up against the wall. And they have a moment. He leans down and whispers into her ear, your power is a song and one I've waited a very, very long time to hear, Nesta. She recognises that she's unable to stop herself. I get it.
Absolutely.
But she does have rational thought.
Can't relate.
Yeah. And starts to back away. But he says to her, do you know what I'm going to think of tonight? I'm going to think of that look on your face. I'm always thinking of that look on your face. Which alludes to his nightly activities as opposed to just tonight in general. He means tonight when he's touching himself.
Absolutely. Lo and behold, she feels it too.
Yeah. Thank you for a beautiful shift. That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast.
Join us again next week as we continue Akatar's Book 5, A Court of Silver Flames.
Whichever platform you're listening on, we would so appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review. It helps our podcast grow.
You can follow us at Instagram, Facebook and TikTok at The Night Shift Court.